Hey, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of House Calls the Podcast. I'm Matthew Waldron, and this week, along with Ty House, we talk with Austin Corlish. Austin is a physical therapist with True Sports Physical Therapy, and he's just a good dude. Just a lot of positive energy that you'll feel it, you'll hear it right away, and you'll get it. He's got a great story, how he was pushed into lacrosse by his mother and how that really changed the trajectory of his life. Besides being a husband and a physical therapist, as part-time lacrosse coach, he is also a member of Team Portugal, which is pretty exciting as the Olympics will be hosting lacrosse in 2028. I really like this episode. I liked hearing about how Ty and his team slice open the patient and put him back together. And then it's up to physical therapists like Austin and his team to get that patient back up, running, and stronger than they were before. So enjoy.
All right, everybody. So welcome to House Calls, the podcast. Today we're talking with Austin Colish, who is a physical therapist. He's the regional director for True Sports. He has a special interest in lacrosse, and his Instagram is Rehab. So we're talking about a lot of subjects that Matt really knows nothing about.
Zero.
Besides his own injuries.
Which
So
are many.
Austin, you're the first physical therapist that we've talked to. And in my whole time as an orthopedic surgeon, I really realized that I never asked all the physical therapists that I know and I work with how they actually became physical therapists and what that journey actually looks like.
Yeah, I mean, well, one, I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much. I'm honored to hold the mantle of first PT, hopefully not the last.
Which is crazy because we've been doing this for 20 years and we just haven't gotten around to that yet. So glad you're here.
Yeah, no, excited to be here. Excited to chat with you guys. Yeah, like I said, hopefully not the last one. But yeah, I mean, my journey to PT, I will say probably a little different from most physical therapists. I think my journey is a little unique. I would say the very typical PT initiation story or backstory is basically they had an injury, they had a really positive experience in physical therapy, and then they pursued that as a passion. For me, it was a little bit different. Knock on wood. I still play sports. I haven't had that big of an injury to kind of warrant a long bout of rehab. So that wasn't my initiation. But on the medical side, I'm actually a type 1 diabetic. So my journey to the world of healthcare started back when I was 10 years old, when I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And what I quickly realized is that, the way our current healthcare model is structured, we're incentivized to see a lot of patients and get them in and out through the door. So as I kind of figured out how to be an athlete, how to manage, basically this massive endocrine autoimmune disease, what I found was that I was getting guidance, but not at the level that I needed to in order to make some like really good adjustments. I was really fortunate through my career as a college athlete to come across a PA who had spent a lot of time and kind of like educated me. And that was a really positive impact on my own personal journey, but it also opened my eyes up that to the world of like healthcare, you can take the time to get to know people. So that was kind of like the initiation of me being like, wow, that was awesome. I had a really positive upswing from that interaction. And that's really what motivated me to pursue a career in healthcare where I can work with people. And man, I'm not just treating a knee or a shoulder, I'm treating Matthew or Ty, right? And I get to know their story, I get to know their background, I get to know their goals. So that's really what motivated me into this world of physical therapy.
So Austin, talk to me as the layman here about type 1 diabetes. It's low insulin. I mean, I know nothing.
Yeah. I mean, how in depth into pathology do you guys want to get into?
I? Very little, but I just want to know.
So for Matt, just let him know like how you were feeling, how you were young, so your parents probably picked up on some stuff and and then what that entails.
Yeah. So, type 1 diabetes basically it's a hormone imbalance issue, right? So your body, if you're healthy and normal, is going to produce the hormone insulin. And basically what that hormone does is it lowers your blood sugar. So every time you eat something, your body is marvelous. It has a way of auto-regulating. It knows, okay, I'm eating a piece of bread. We got to produce some insulin to help reduce the blood sugar and then have that absorption across, the muscles. In type 1 diabetes, that doesn't happen. And so what happens from a symptomatic standpoint is you eat stuff, your blood sugar goes up, and nothing's bringing it back down. So yeah, to put into context, I was a 10-year-old and I was experiencing what's known as hyperglycemia, which is high blood sugar. So I was super thirsty, and it's like this like self-fulfilling loop because like you become really thirsty and then you're just like consuming more calories, like having Gatorade or whatever. But yeah, it's truly an autoimmune disease. In my case, no one in my family had it, so it was type 1 diabetes. And then quickly you start to see some like pretty unnerving symptoms. So I lost like 30 pounds across a 2-week period. I was keto acidotic. My blood sugar was extremely high. And then that kind of, yeah, that started my journey. You know, I was in the hospital for 2 weeks and they quickly found out what was going on.
So once they figured it out, you started getting insulin. Did they encourage you to play sports, or did people discourage you to play sports, or nothing to do with that?
Yeah, really kind of interesting. Like for reference, you can't really see it on the screen. I'm 6'2", 220 pounds. Like I've always been like a bigger dude.
Twinsies. Total twinsies.
So
And Matt, you have great hair, just like Austin.
I've always been a bigger dude. I didn't play sports growing up. Yeah.
You weren't into sports growing up, or?
No, not at all. So this actually ties in with my story for lacrosse, which I'm sure we're gonna get into. It was my mom who was like, "Hey, dude, like you got to do something. We got to get you out of this rut." And that was more from like a mental standpoint. Like I was going through a tough time, you know, middle school, trying to find my identity, dealing with this massive health thing.
And where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I'm from Jersey originally. So I live in Baltimore now. But yeah, originally from Jersey. I'd never heard of lacrosse, had no idea what it was. So my mom kind of tricked me. She signed me up for this 1 week long camp. But it was great. And it was such a great outlet for me. And I don't know how familiar you guys are with lacrosse, but in the community, I mean, one, it's a Native American sport. And two, they refer to it as the medicine game. And truly, that's what it was for me.
Interesting.
So once you got into it, did you get into any other sports, or was it always lacrosse the whole way?
Yeah, I'm a one-trick pony. And for a lot of my career, man, I've been a really bad lacrosse player. But it helped frame so much for me. It helped show me a passion for sports. It taught me the lesson that movement truly is medicine. And so, again, I say all this because it truly ties into like kind of where I am today.
So now, you were a one-trick pony, but when you're training athletes, do you encourage them to play multiple sports? Like that's the big, play multiple sports?
Yeah. I didn't not play multiple sports because I was so good at lacrosse. It was because I was such a bad athlete. I only had one skill set. But yeah, no, I encourage that a lot, especially to the parents I work with. We see this like early specialization. I actually think that's not great from an injury standpoint. I think we see a lot of overuse injuries that happen from that. So yeah, I mean, as much as I can, I advocate for play as many sports as you can.
Okay. And then I'm interested in the academic part because Matt probably doesn't realize it is super hard to get into therapy school.
Nerd.
So I'm somewhat familiar because I have basically scribes who work for me, and they're postgraduates. They graduate from college. They want to go into either medical school or PA school, physician assistant school, or physical therapy school. And it is really hard to get into any of those schools now. So what are the prerequisites? What kind of science do you have to have in college? What do you have to do if you are interested in being a physical therapist?
Yeah, so I'm gonna back tie up here a little bit. I'm a massive nerd, man. I thought all through high school I was gonna go into IT. I got a certificate in Word application. I'm a Word application specialist, meaning I know how to use Excel sheets really good.
Ooh. I does not.
I joke about that, but yeah, no. So at some point I was like, hey, maybe sitting at a desk all day is not the best career outcome. So all I knew that when I went to college, I wanted to study exercise science. Again, learning that lesson of like movement is medicine. So that was my career path. My undergraduate degree was in exercise physiology. And then I did have the opportunity to get a number of minors. So I minored in psychology, biology, and biomechanics. I got a really great education. I went to a small D3 school called DeSales University in Pennsylvania. So I had the opportunity to play lacrosse there. I got a really well-rounded, robust education there. But yeah, it wasn't until pretty late. And again, at this point in my career, I hadn't done any rehab, probably because I wasn't a good enough athlete to actually get injured to begin with. But yeah, I was like, man, what am I going to do with my career? And so I started looking at the options there. And I saw that PT probably seemed like a cool field. And then, yeah, the application process is pretty in depth. I mean, I definitely was punching out of my weight class in terms of like the prerequisites. The GPA requirements is like at least like 3.7, 3.8. And that's just to get even a look at that. There's a GRE score requirements. And then in terms of the science classes, I mean, it's everything. You need bio, chem, physics 1 and 2, human anatomy 1 and 2. Yeah, those are just to name a few.
And those are things that people take, like when Matt didn't take those classes in college. So
No.
like if you're taking those in college, you're thinking, hey, I might go into something in healthcare. So I guess
Yeah.
you knew in college that you had an idea you might want to do this.
It lined up with the exercise physiology major in that like I was also taking like weightlifting classes, which was like that's what I was interested in. So yeah, it did line up that the prerequisites are there. I think the summer before I decided to apply to PT school, I had to like take some of those higher level ones like the physics too. I wasn't taking that out of the goodness of my heart.
And then
And where'd you go to PT school?
Yeah, so I went to Rutgers. I stayed home. In-state tuition helped out a ton. So yeah, in Jersey.
And once you were in, like, what does that look like? What part's classwork? What part is kind of like hands-on with patients? How long does it take? Because I mean, you
Yes.
end up being a doctor of physical therapy now, so it's a lot.
Yeah, and that was a recent change in the last decade where previously it was, a 1 or 2 year degree, you got your master's, they had some accelerated programs, but yeah, Rutgers has a doctorate program, so that's 3 years of graduate school on top of the 4 I had already done, which, was a big commitment in terms of like making the decision to do that. I was fortunate enough to obviously, like I said, get accepted into a in-state school, which helped. I always joke like, the first time I was like understanding what a PT did, I was already in PT school. So there was a period of time where I was like, man, what the heck did I sign up for here?
That's awesome.
Your first year of PT school, you're learning really valuable skills, transfer, sit to stand. It's like a lot of the acute care, inpatient, hospital-based care, which I totally believe that we need. It was not where my passions had lied. So, I'm learning how to help grandma and grandpa, get off the table, get off the commode. I think those skills are super valuable. What really drove my passion to stick with it and to finish through PT school and I think launched me onto the career I have now was the final year, which you go and do your clinical experiences. So the first 2 years for me, basically were didactic. You're learning a lot of like school work, the nitty gritty, the science of everything. But once I got into the field and got to work with patients, man, I was so motivated to continue to do that. That's why I wanted to do it.
So it sounds a little bit, Matt, like my story in that. So our friend, Dr. Klepper, is an orthopedic surgeon, and we were worried when he went to med school, somebody would steal his lunch money. So we drew straws, and I got chosen to kind of supervise Dr. Klepper in med school, and I ended up falling in love with it. So it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah. Exactly. You stumbled into it. Yeah. And you stopped people from kicking sand in Brian's face. So that was nice of you. That was nice.
So once you graduate from school, how did you end up where you are now? And what different practice models are there? Like what options are there? Because you have a very unique practice now. So how'd you get to that?
Yeah, really, really good question, Doc. So I was really fortunate, and here's another crazy story. Part of our placement for our clinical rotations, I mean, they're deciding this almost a year in advance because there's a lot of back end work. You got to make sure that the rotation has space for you, that they can take on a student. There's a caseload for it. So I initially was placed for my third rotation. We typically do 4, at least through Rutgers. I was going to go out to Four Corners out in Arizona and be on a Native American population or a reservation and work with that population, which I was pretty excited about. I found out 2 weeks before that my instructor, or who would have been my instructor, actually left. And so I didn't have a placement. And so what that would have meant for me is that I was going to graduate late. And again, I was kind of in the financial situation where I was like, I needed to be on track to start making money, start paying off student loans and get my career rolling. I was really fortunate that through connections of Instagram, I knew about True Sports down in Maryland. And I saw that they worked with lacrosse players and their clinics had turf and weight rooms. And that was like super motivating to me. So I was really, really fortunate to last minute get a rotation down here. I got exposed to the whole team down here in Maryland. And I did a 4-month rotation with True Sports. So I think that was a pivotal moment for me in my career in terms of just learning actually how to do sports care, how to rehab an ACL, how to talk and communicate with patients, with parents. So yeah, that was a huge launch pad for me. And then after I graduated school, I've been on record saying this before. I think, you ask about models, which is a really interesting question. I applied to every single practice in the state of New Jersey that had the word athlete, sports, athletic, anything like that. And I'll tell you this, like, there's not many places that actually are doing what they claim to do. So that was a large motivator in terms of getting me back down to Baltimore. I did take a chance on that, and I haven't looked back since. I've been really happy in terms of the way that we're supported through True Sports and the way that we're able to deliver care. And specifically, I mean, a typical physical therapy practice, they're treating anywhere from patients an hour, and the way that that's structured through our healthcare and insurance model, they're incentivized to do that. The more people you see an hour, the more units you can build, the more money you can make. We don't do that at True Sport.
So what? Okay.
Yeah. We treat now, we're one-on-one for 45 minutes. And I think like that individual time really matters. And again, I think that kind of goes back to my initial ethos. Like, I want to get to know my patients. I want to hear their story, and I want to be present for a return to whatever their goals are.
So back to Rutgers, though, when you were doing your rotations, there's so many different facets of physical therapy and patients and disciplines. But that's when you realized you wanted to work with athletes. I mean, yourself being an athlete, is that really where you got that passion for that?
Yeah, I mean, good question. I think physical therapy is so unique in that there's so many different avenues, right? I mean, my wife is a pediatric physical therapist, and she specializes in kids, under 14 months. So she's working with like little babies. As I mentioned, there's like more of that orthopedic route. I think we overlap there in terms of like we see a lot of post-operative orthopedic type injuries. There's neuro, so heavy intensive, like TBI type stuff. So there's a lot of different avenues you can go. I think I kind of knew from the get, like I wanted to be around athletes.
Got it. So Matt knows, like, a hospital physical therapist is usually getting people out of bed so they can be mobilized. And there's geriatric physical therapists who, a lot of times, they do home visits where they're trying to teach people how to move around their house as they age or after surgery. So Austin's practice is very unique. To shout out your wife, where does she work and what's her name?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So her name's Erica Law. So Dr. Law, she's awesome and the most patient woman I've ever met in my life. So she has her own practice. It's called Kids First PT, based here out of Baltimore. And yeah, recently launched that, I think a year or two ago. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, I mean, the work she does is incredible. Totally different. I always joke with her because I work with a lot of high school kids. I'm like, yeah, I'm a pediatric therapist too, but it's totally different.
Yeah. And once somebody becomes a therapist, you have those options to work for an organization like you did, to start your own practice, or to, join a hospital. There's tons of different options and tons of different kind of subspecialties you can go into, correct?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And again, I've been fortunate that, I came into this practice, obviously, as a new grad, and I've been with the company ever since, but I've felt very supported. And, I get the question a lot, like, oh, would you go and start your own thing? I mean, my answer is resoundingly no. Like, I feel really supported, and like the buckets I need filled are filled through True Sports, and I feel really supported in that. So
where's your office? Where is True Sports in Baltimore?
15 locations across Delaware, PA, and Maryland. Yeah, so in my role as a regional director, I oversee 6 of our locations. That's Locust Point in the city, Fells Point in the city, up in Timonium, Bear Hills, Glen Burnie, which I believe Dr. House has popped in for a visit, and then also Bethesda.
Go back to training athletes. Let's
Ty, shut up. We're talking. I'm making new friends.
Athletes. So you're not just working with injured athletes, correct? You're working with all athletes. You're also doing some strength and conditioning. You're doing some lacrosse workouts, and you're working with injured athletes, correct?
Yep. Yeah. So, and part of that is my background as a lacrosse coach. So I also do coach. I've coached high school lacrosse up in Jersey. The last 2 years, I coached at Boys Latin from School, Maryland, with the JV squad there. And then, I do have a background as a strength and conditioning coach. So I do like to say I wear a lot of different hats. But yeah, I mean, like I said, each of those buckets I get filled in this realm here. And I think, again, if we start to change our idea of like what physical therapy can be, not just a post-injury Band-Aid, but instead hey, like let's prevent the injury from even happening in the first place. So let's get those movement patterns down. Let's get nice and strong. So yes, I am able to do kind of all 3 of those things.
Okay. That's a busy schedule, coaching full time JV lacrosse, plus doing your therapy, plus going, supervising all the
Yeah.
different offices. You're very
Unfortunately, I'm not coaching this year, but
okay.
yeah, it was a lot. But man, I love it. I love being out
That's
there.
good. It's great. Yeah, and you can tell you're passionate about it, and that's what makes it fun for you, and probably fun for people you work with as well. Just that your energy is so it's very electric, and you can feel it. That's great for everybody. So
Appreciate
when
that.
you so when you're so when you get an athlete, are you getting them, as you said, are you getting them post injury? Or are you getting somebody that's coming in saying, "Hey, I'm a scrawny 5'9", 157-pound guy and need to put some weight on and like to get a little bit bigger and stronger"? Like what does that look like?
Matt, I feel like you had a very specific person in mind when you said that.
We'll talk offline, but yeah.
Yeah, it's more of the post injury. Usually it's more of the post injury. So
Right.
I mean I think I tend to see a lot of ACL tears, and there's a lot of different surgical solutions for that. So I feel like that's kind of been my niche. I treat a lot of lacrosse players that have had ACL tears and are trying to get back to the field. A big part of that rehab is definitely that Venn diagram becomes very synonymous of strength and conditioning, because that's a big part of the rehab is you got to get stronger. So that's definitely more of my niche.
With the ACL tears, there's a lot of information. Matt may not be aware of it. Women athletes tear their ACLs a lot, and there's some evidence that some of these prevention prehab programs are helpful. Do you do any of that stuff? Do you believe in that? And how do you get that message out to these youth programs and club programs to get these people started on this? And the reason I'm asking is a friend of mine's daughter, I believe you treated her. She tore her ACL. She's committed to West Point, going to West Point next year. She's got a little sister. So it's like, all right, how do you help prevent these kids like that from tearing their ACL?
And just so you know, they're my friends too. Okay, he's such an ass. He's so like territorial. Oh, my friend's from Colorado and daughter's going to West Point. No one cares. Okay, go ahead.
I mean, really well said. I think the best weapon or tool, rather, I guess tool is a better word, that I have as a provider is education. So I think education is the first piece. So creating an awareness for it. As you mentioned, female athletes do tend to suffer a higher incidence of this. Again, going back to like some of those factors like youth athletes that don't have a strong history background who are female, maybe they're on their menstrual cycle, like all these things are factors that not a lot of people are aware of and are easily, at least maybe I'm not going to say completely preventable, but we can draw an awareness to just from talking about it and educating regarding like teams and programs. Yeah, I mean, we try to do as much of that as we can. One, from a business standpoint, it's great to get us out into the community and so people know that we exist. And two, yeah, I mean, if I'm in front of 20 kids and we go through a whole injury prevention type workshop, if what I'm saying lands with at least one of them, like I've done my job. So yeah, we do a lot of different things like that, going out to the field, meeting with teams, meeting with coaches, going to high schools. We really try to scream it from the rooftops in terms of like how much proactivity people can take from that.
You
And
think
then
some of those programs are starting to take off, like some of the, especially for ACLs, because it has a lot to do with the hamstring, quadricep balance, and jumping, and those programs have proven to be effective. So do you feel like it's getting better, say, than it was 10 years ago?
I think the awareness on it has gotten better. I also think, again, speaking about specifically the female athletes, like I've seen this transition. I mean, there was a time where like female athletes just didn't lift weights ever, but there was an expectation that they were going to play sports. And so you have this imbalance of like, if you think about the amount of force that goes through your leg doing a full sprint into a cut, like you got to be strong to be able to take on those forces. And if you're not, guess what happens? That force is dissipated usually through the ligaments, and then we end up in an injury. So, yeah, I think culturally it's gotten a little bit better. I still, I say that, and there's still programs. I mean, and I've seen high level Division 1 programs where there's not equity of access to that or education or care, or they just don't have great resources for these athletes. So I still don't feel that we're at a point, globally, or at least in the American collegiate space that where it should be. I think there's a lot of work that we can still do. But
Yeah.
to your point, I mean, we know from research like these injury prevention programs work, and if not prevent everything, they help reduce the rates.
Yeah. Are you treating any older athletes? I mean, I know it's mostly high school, but are you treating middle age or at least 30s, middle age athletes?
Yeah, so there's a couple of professional athletes I work with who I'd say fall into like that 20 to 30 age range. And the best thing I love about like the setting we're able to work in is we also see a ton of like weekend warrior type people too. And that's awesome. Like, I think those are some of my favorite people to work with because maybe they play like a Volo sport, which is like the local community pickup, soccer or basketball league, but they also want to be able to run around with their kids. I mean, that equally as motivating. I mean, like I said, you got to find out what their goals are and then just figure out how do we work back to what that is.
So it's interesting for me because I'm a huge believer in physical therapy. So I have the challenge of explaining to patients why physical therapy's gonna work. And the one person you get is like the gym rat who maybe has a rotator cuff problem. And they already, you're trying to explain to them they got to go work on strengthening the rotator cuff, but they're like, look at me, I go to the gym all the time. And I always tell them, like, if Tom Brady just threw footballs, his arm would fall off. Like, that guy's doing physical therapy all the time. Or Lamar Jackson now. And it's like, it's getting the light bulb to go off to be like, oh, okay. But the gym rat who's the middle-aged person who's in the co-ed softball, the co-ed soccer, the pickup basketball league, they're fine at 20, 25, but around 32, if they're not doing conditioning, stretching, something like yoga, they're going to fall apart. So it's like convincing that person, like, hey, you're super active, but you've been in here 6 times this year with
Yeah.
stuff that's preventable if you would
Yeah.
just do some yoga with Matt and maybe some
Right.
training.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, the number of Achilles and ACLs that pickleball has claimed is insane. And it's exactly what you're talking about. It's like, oh yeah, like I'm kind of active, but they're not doing any mobility training. They're not doing any strengthening. They're not doing any conditioning. And then they go and then they put these demands on their body. And they're just like, oh, I'm just gonna go play pickup basketball. And then boom, right, something goes.
It's ideally they start a workout program that they're motivated to do because they want to play pickleball or they want to play basketball. Like, that's the ideal thing, is that they get all excited about their health and nutrition.
Yeah, and I think these programs they can have a really low barrier to entry. Like it doesn't need to be a lot. I mean, especially where we are in terms of like the American public health. Like if you went for a walk, and I know you're big on this, Dr. House, like go for a 5-minute walk. That's more than you did yesterday. That's a great place to start.
Yeah. So I'm gonna tell you my story just so Matt can start rolling his eyes. And this is one of the reasons I'm a huge believer in therapy, and I tell my patients all the time.
Physical therapy.
Everybody.
Because there's other therapies that you need that you deny.
But when I was in high school, I got hurt in a lacrosse game and I hurt my back, and it bugged me.
Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Gilman.
Oh,
We
okay.
beat Yale a couple times, but we lost him a couple times. So I hurt my back in a lacrosse game in the summer. So it bugged me my whole year, senior year of football. I hurt it again in a wrestling match. And then my back hurt off and on through playing college lacrosse, through medical school, through residency. Like, it was like, helping move patients, my back would hurt. Bending over to change a dressing, my back would hurt. My fellowship year, so I'm 32 years old. I'm in Louisville, Kentucky, and my wife and kids are in Annapolis, and they're going to meet me there for the school year, but they're spending the summer in Annapolis. And I pull out a tape and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get in really good shape. I'm here all summer by myself. I'm just going to work out all the time. And I pulled out the old Abs of Steel tape and I'm like, I'm going to get Abs of Steel. I'm going to get a 6-pack. My wife's going to be really impressed when she shows up in September. I did not get Abs of Steel, but my back pain completely went away because I was doing core and back exercises. So since then, I'm like, if we could just get everybody to buy in to doing back exercises, 10 minutes, 3 times a week. And I tell people all the time, go to the physical therapist, learn the exercises, make sure that you're doing them the right way. But when your back pain goes away, you're not healed. Do those exercises forever. And I feel like
100%.
that's a big part of therapy is you get better with the therapist, but when you leave, that problem area is never 100% healed. Pretend it's 1% still there, and you need to do that maintenance program forever.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like our Western brains just like okay, I've met the goal, on to the next thing. It's like, no, like this needs to be a lifestyle adaptation. Yeah, I mean, really well said.
And if we MRI'd any of the three of ours backs, Matt because he's old, me because I'm old, you because you're still playing lacrosse, we would not want to look at the MRIs of our backs. There's going to be all sorts of stuff that you don't want to know about.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, totally agreed. Yeah, and that's a conversation we have a lot. I mean, good example of this, I was recently overseas playing lacrosse. I was over there to play in a 3-day tournament. We had 8 games. And this is just how life goes. The first 3 minutes of the first game, a dude falls on my knee, valgus collapse, like knee caves in, I hear a crunch. I'm like, "Oh God." I played through it. It was great. Like I still had a good time. I came back over here. Everyone's like, "Oh, you're gonna get an image?" Like, no, it's fine. I'm gonna like give it a couple weeks, do some rehab. Like, let's see how it is. So I think there's also that tendency too. It's like we gotta like get the image on everything. But to your point, like there's a lot of beauty in the art of healthcare as well, where it's just like let's promote some body positivity. Let's move a little bit and see kind of where we end up.
So how old are you now?
I am 30 years old. 30 years young.
Yeah. So
Yeah, you are.
have you noticed anything as you're playing lacrosse that you have to do now, like more stretching or more strength training, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, this is the most banged up I've ever been in my entire life. I've got a nasty left Achilles tendinopathy. I separated my AC joint playing in a championship game last summer. I mean, the wheels are falling off the tracks here, but we're holding on.
And tell us about the Team Portugal thing.
Yeah, so that's what I was overseas doing. Kind of unique story, and again, this just ties back to like in my mind the power of lacrosse. So my mom's Portuguese. She has Portuguese heritage. My grandparents were born there. They immigrated over, and I grew up all the time going to Portugal. My grandmother still lives there, and believe it or not, Portugal has a national lacrosse team. I've been associated with them for almost the last 12 years. And yeah, I mean, we've made some big developments. We've gotten bigger in terms of just the awareness and the types of players that we've had. I would not say that we're exceptionally competitive, but man, we're turning some heads. We've got some big things coming. But yeah, I mean, I've been super thankful to be involved with that program. Because of my background, I do help with I don't speak. A lot of them speak English. Yeah.
Okay.
I know a couple words I'm able to kind of like get around out there. But yeah, I mean, one, it's fun. I love being a part of that program. This past October, I got married in Portugal. I had my whole team come out, so that was like a really cool experience. But yeah, I mean, we got some big. So this summer, we have the European finals coming up. If you qualify, you then get invited to the World Games, which would be in 2026 in Japan. I think we're positioned to be the most competitive we've ever been as a program to do that this summer. We've done some heavy recruiting, and the guys that we have over there are just getting better.
How many of the players are American versus how many of them are from Portugal? So how many of them are like you, where they played NCAA lacrosse and heritage?
So historically, I was one of like maybe 2, I think. So this was a big change too. It was announced for the 2028 Olympics, there will be lacrosse in it. So I think once that got announced, got put on this truly global stage, a ton of awareness and buzz. So we've also been doing some heavy recruiting. So currently as it stands, I'd say about a quarter to 50%, maybe not even fully 50%. We have also had some really unique experiences where a guy in Portugal who was like 14 when he started, this was 10 years ago when I first met him, he's now playing in America doing, he's at Bowdoin University up in Maine, and like he made our roster to play. So
it's cool to watch.
Yeah, it's been awesome to see the development of the program, and now I'm like one of the old heads on the team. I'm like excited to be like, hey, I'll be the team PT, when it's time to hang the cleats up.
So you've probably been in this situation, but when I was 40 and 45, a bunch of us from this area played in the Florida Classic, Old Man Lacrosse, and there's a division for each one. But it's funny, kind of like when the team doctor is running from the defensive end of the field. We had a guy who tore his Achilles tendon, run the clock out, and everybody was like, Ty started sprinting up the field right away because he heard the pop. And I bet you that happens. It's like, why is the attackman coming over and I've had that situation also. Like, why are you coming over to take care of your injured teammate? And I've had that where I'm like, the coach is running out on the field, and I'm like, I'm also an orthopedic surgeon,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I've had that unfortunately more times than not. A great account of this was our last European finals was, I guess, 3 years ago now. We were playing in Wrocław, Poland, which is a very desolate, cold place. We had a game against, I think, Belgium, and one of our guys went, dove, scored, awesome, awesome moment. He didn't get up right away. I'm like, crap, what's going on? I sprint over, take my stuff off. I mean, his AC joint had completely separated, and I had to get that guy off, like calling for a timeout, like called the ambulance, got him in, helmet back on, back
Oh my
back
God.
onto the field. So yeah, I mean, it's no shortage of excitement. So
Austin, I know with with your personal medical background, obviously nutrition, diet, it's a big part of your personal life. How much of that do you preach to your clients, to your
yeah,
patients?
yeah. So I try to be clear in terms of nutritional advice because, I mean, technically, as a registered dietitian is like a whole separate field, and so I try not to speak too far outside of my scope. That said, I mean, it's so important. I'm sure each of us here have a familiarity with a bunch of teenage kids who are, staying up way too late and crushing whatever C4 Celsius drinks, Monster Energy drinks, and not eating nearly as much protein as they should be. But that's a big part of the rehab process. Like if one of our goals is to improve strength or get the limb that's been post-surgical bigger, that's not going to happen by chance. And so nutrition is absolutely a massive piece of that. So it's definitely something I talk about a lot, especially with my younger kids.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely a piece of that stool, the sleep, the
For sure.
rest, and the rehab. So
It's
yeah,
it's
definitely have to look at that.
interesting because they're putting so much effort in. Like they're getting sometimes like from your Instagram, they're getting to your facility at 6 o'clock in the morning to do workouts. They're going to these tournaments over the weekend. They're playing 3 games a day, and it's just letting them know that you're doing everything you can to get a competitive advantage. If you just dial in that nutrition, it's going to be huge. And we have
Right.
interviewed, I think so far, 2 college athletes, and they both talked a lot about how once you're at the college level, it's almost taken care of for you. But at the high school level, you and
After
your
D1, yeah,
of it.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's actually a really interesting transition that I think happens where, as a college athlete, a lot of these like guardrails are set in place. And for
Right.
some of these guys who go pro, from a training standpoint, they may not have access to someone who's writing workouts for them. In the same way, they don't have someone who's doing a meal plan for them. So, I mean, that's a whole separate conversation, but it is interesting, just one, how big of a piece that is, and two, just, yeah, like those trends, I don't think there's as much support for the high school athlete. You get a ton of it in college, and then it's like, okay, well, what happens after that?
right, right. Well, Austin, you've been really generous with your time. You definitely have a passion, and there's definitely need. And I love seeing the two sides of the medical, like the doctor, the slicer, cutting people up, and you putting them back together and making them better. So it's definitely good to see the full
And to
perspective.
add on to what Matt said, just a shout out to physical therapy is when you have a real sports injury and you get surgery, if you're not dedicated to your therapy, you're not going to have a good result. It's not like some of the surgeries we do, it's just we fix it, you're better the next day. In the sports medicine surgeries, you have to be committed or almost like what was the point?
Right. Yeah, Matt, thank you so much. I mean, I appreciate your kind words. And yeah, just to double down, like I think it's got to be intentional effort. Like that doesn't happen by chance.
No doubt, no doubt. What
So
are you about to say?
you got your good questions, Matt?
Yeah, good questions. All right, give it. All right, so let's see here. Do I have a good question for you? What's one of your guilty pleasures?
Guilty pleasures. Okay, in
Yeah.
what
Yeah, well, any context you want. If you want to let it be known that you watch Bravo all the time, share it. That's fine.
Okay, I guess I'll be on record with saying this one. I recently started playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay, we'll cut that. All right, I'm gonna ask you again. All right, from the top. No, Dungeons and Dragons. Okay.
Yeah, it was introduced to me 5 months ago. I found a group of guys. Yeah, it's been a really interesting
That's
experience. Definitely outside my comfort zone, but it's been awesome. So
So
you earlier said you were a nerd, so I respect it fully. So you're
so
on
Austin,
brand.
I have more questions about the Dungeons and Dragons. I'm curious because
Oh God.
Is it making a comeback because the boys and Stranger Things watched
I
it?
think
It
so.
was
I
big in
think
the 80s
so.
and 90s, so you're way past the age where it was big. So is it Dungeons and Dragons making a comeback?
I mean, maybe. Like I said, it's for me, it's more of it's an excuse to get away to one, not think about all the work stuff. I put a lot of my time and energy into this.
Okay.
The people I play with are not coworkers at all.
Okay.
So I think that's a good escape for me. But yeah, I mean, maybe. I know Stranger Things did put it on the map.
Okay. So are you a golfer at all?
I'm not a golfer.
Okay. So our question is usually around what's your dream foursome, but we're gonna say, okay, you're taking three people out to dinner, living, dead, historical, fictional. Who are you taking?
Yeah, I'm glad you provided context because I wasn't sure what that meant. Not a golfer. Living or dead? Man, it's such a good question. I I don't know. I gotta think about this.
Were you play lacrosse? Were you a lacrosse fan? Like so? Yeah.
Pullman does not have to go with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see way too much of that guy. So definitely not Marcus. I put, so the owner of the PLL, which is the Professional Lacrosse League, Paul
Okay.
Rabel. I think he's got a really unique story. I've had a couple opportunities to meet with him, but I think I'd enjoy sitting down to have a dinner with him. I think
Okay.
he'd be at that table. I am known to not be a other sports guy, so I'm often ridiculed for my lack of knowledge in other sports. That said, I think Michael Jordan I mean, he's the GOAT. So would love to sit down and chat with him. And I think I put Kobe there too. Again, I'm not a basketball guy,
Yeah.
but I think if someone within their own sphere can reach outside to someone like me who doesn't know basketball and I know their names and the legacy that they've had, I think that's really impactful. So I'd say those three.
Absolutely. That'd be a good dinner.
When you were young, when your mom first got you into lacrosse, did you start
Sure.
following the college game and have people you looked up to and people who did you have like heroes kind of like any names stuck out that you're like, oh my gosh, I saw this guy play or I was a huge fan of this guy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first one that comes to mind, and maybe this guy gets invited to dinner too, the late Callum Robinson. So this guy, if you don't know his story, he's from Perth, Australia. This massive dude, massive energy, massive hair. He played at Stevenson University and then went on to play in the professional league for a while. He also was a type 1 diabetic.
Oh,
So I think that story was like super unique. But yeah, he recently passed away. Super young dude, really tragic story the past year. So would love to catch up with him and share some stories with him. He's definitely someone I looked up to.
okay.
What other players did you like when you were coming up? Like, did you model or did you like, that were part of your, I guess, era?
Oh man, yeah, I think a lot of the guys who are a little bit older now. Are you guys like super well versed in lacrosse?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, like I distinctly remember Matt Rambo winning a national championship. Like I was
Right.
at that game at Gillette
Yeah.
Stadium. Like that was cool. I know, he's a big indoor guy. And he's been crushing the outdoor game for a while. So yeah, those dudes definitely have looked to. The Stanwyck name has such a strong like
Don't know that one.
yeah. So I mean, there's a number of. Oh, is that a joke? Did not.
Do you train Marcus? I thought I saw him on your Instagram.
Yeah. So yeah, me and Marcus have been working together for almost the past 2.5 years. Initially, he had a pretty nagging proximal adductor tendinopathy that brought him in. And then, our relationship kind of transformed more into like rehab, but also into like some S&Cs type work. So I think he's a good example of someone who kind of falls in the in-between world of like injury prevention, injury rehab, maintenance, strength and conditioning. But yeah, I know Marcus really well.
And he's kind of that age where he's doing other stuff, but he's still playing the highest level lacrosse possible. It's
Right.
not like when he was 18, keeping his body together.
Right.
I'm going to tell you a quick story about Marcus, and Marcus may not even remember this, but
Yeah, please.
in our neighborhood, we have a lacrosse game once a year, and this will be the 25th year this year, and it was the married guys versus the single guys. So you can't play until you're a junior in high school. And when we first started, the married guys would always win because literally the whole attack was in the Hall of Fame. Most of the starting lineup had been an All-American at some point. Marcus's dad was the goalie. He was an All-American. Hopkins. So all these 40-year-old guys are beating the high school and college kids. It was on a small field and it's very light contact. So because it was a smaller field, it was a good game. But as those guys started aging out and retiring, the single guys started kind of beating up on the married guys. So we started basically letting one or two single guys play on the married team. And there was one year where Marcus was at Carolina. He played on the married team, and the married guys won again. We won 8-7, and Marcus had 7 goals.
Oh,
so
man. Well,
we do it more like in school, out of school. So if you're in college, so we just all those 20-year-olds who are right out of college, and some of the guys who are still in college, if they're like an All-American, they still play on the married team.
that's awesome. I mean, he would qualify on the married team now, so
That's right.
that's hilarious.
It's funny.
So I still want to know what his walkout music is. We have a real life still playing lacrosse guy. I want to know what his walkout music is.
Well, I want to let him to go to bed. He's been working since like 6 a.m.
And his favorite book. I know it's your bedtime, but we had a late start.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, no, I'll take that. It's my fault.
No,
Walkout song, man. I don't know. I'm in a weight room all day. I like rap music. So, yeah, 2 Chainz, The Game, Jay-Z. Let's go. Any of it.
Ty just checked out. He went, how many chains? Why would you wear more than one chain?
All right, and how about a motivational movie scene or motivational movie or motivational book? Do you have anything like that where before a big game you might watch a movie or put on a movie clip?
Well, just to take Matt off, I'm gonna go Lord of the Rings. I mean, come on, great. No, I think motivational movie scene, The Gladiator. Come on, are you not entertained? Like that just gets me fired up. That gets me fired up. And then did you say book?
Book.
Yeah. So no, Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. That was like, I think the first book that made me realize like, oh, I can read more than just fiction or science books.
Right on.
So I think that was a really good one. More recently now in my role as a director, I've taken on a lot of these tasks of mentorship and development, passing these skills on to other PTs. So there's this awesome book I've really learned a lot from by Kim Scott. It's called Radical Candor. It just talks about how to give good feedback. And I think it's something that I hadn't really been taught to do. And it's a really unique skill to be able to give someone good feedback, both positive and negative and critical. So that's something I use in my daily practice for sure.
That's a good one to remember.
Since you work with a lot of young athletes, I'm going to give you a book recommendation. You might have already heard of this book, but Inner Excellence by Jim Murphy. It was the book. You said you're pretty much a lacrosse guy, but A.J. Brown of the Philadelphia Eagles in the first round of the playoffs was kind of having a rough game, and they saw him on the sideline reading the book, and they thought he was kind of protesting because he wasn't getting enough passes. And he, in the post-game interview, said, no, I have passages highlighted to keep me focused and motivated. It's great for athletes, but it's great for anybody who might find themselves in high pressure situations or in leadership situations. I think it'd be great for any athlete. And since you see them and still play sports yourself, it would be a good read for them. And then you could recommend it to your kids.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great call out. I've definitely heard the name. Haven't read it yet, so I'll add that to my list. Thanks.
Please do.
One of my interests is, we mentioned that you're dealing with these athletes who are super motivated. They're showing up to your facility at 6 a.m. or after school, and they're doing all these great things. They're around mentors like you. They're around coaches. They're getting all this information on leadership and motivation and purpose. They're getting fit. They're probably learning something about nutrition. How do we get some of these messages to kids and some of these opportunities to kids who maybe aren't as interested in sports or aren't as motivated to play sports? So basically it's a big question, but any ideas how to keep people healthy and fit and motivated outside?
Yeah. I mean, it's such a good question. And guys, like, that was me. Yeah. Like, for me, it was a massive life event where my mom basically was like, I don't care. I'm going to push you out of your comfort zone. But that absolutely was me. So that's definitely a question that's near and dear to my heart. I think the best way is, like, we just got to find ways to make it fun. we got to find ways to reduce those barriers of entry. Like I think the best parts of my job is like, again, we talked about those female athletes and getting them in the weight room, like taking a young adult who's a female who is a competitive athlete but has never been in the weight room before. Like that is like one of the best moments for me to be like, hey, like you can do this too. That's definitely a big victory. I think ways we can do that, again, it starts with education, and I think creating systems where it's play based and it's like obviously the competition is like absolutely a part of this world. It's a part of sport. I think at a young age, if we can just like gather more people and encourage them to play, good things happen. Like I love that example of like your blocks playing. Everyone's out there. Like that's a community based thing. I think that's part of the solution.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. The community makes it easier and better and easier to swallow
Yeah.
for everybody.
We talked about how women lifting weights is so important, and we've had other guests who talked about how that might be the most critical thing as you age for aging women is to lift weights. And one of my favorite memes is women used to be afraid of lifting weights. They didn't want to get bulky. And it's basically like the chance of you getting bulky lifting weights is like the chance of me winning the Indy 500 because I got a driver's license.
Right.
It is so hard to get bulky.
Yeah.
If you'd seen our very first episode, Matt logged in with his shirt off and he looked amazing, but that took 30 years of work. He was scrawny when he was your age.
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I completely agree.
You got to do it. This is great. This is
All
good
right.
stuff. And I do think you're going to help a lot of people when we post this in another week or so. So thank
Awesome.
you.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yep.
Thanks for coming on. That was a great one.
Hopefully you don't have too much editing to do.
Of you, at least.